Today's determined attackers easily bypass even the most advanced network defenses. Trying to ramp up staff to detect their backdoors can cost thousands of dollars and take months, even years. With Active Countermeasures AI Hunter, we enable junior analysts to detect even the most advanced backdoors in a matter of hours. Sign up for a demo and purchase our product today by visiting activecountermeasures.com/BSW. Active Countermeasures. Make every analyst a hunter. Rapid7 powers the practice of SecOps. Using shared data, analytics, and automated workflows, SecOps unites IT, DevOps, and security teams to make security an outcome of innovation. Rapid7 combines technology, expertise, and advocacy to drive vulnerability management, application security, incident detection, and log management for more than 7,000 organizations worldwide. Power up your SecOps practice with a free trial at rapid7.com/securityweekly.
Welcome back to Business Security Weekly. I'm your host, Matt Alderman. I'm here in Boulder, Colorado at Automox's new headquarters, joined by CEO Jay Prassl. Welcome, Jay.
Yeah, thanks. Good to be here.
So let's start with some interesting news. You just announced a Series A round, a week or a week and a half ago?
Yeah, just about a week and a half ago. It's kind of like dog years, though. It feels like 2 months ago, but yeah, it was only a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it was a long process because, having been an advisor for Automox for almost a year and a half now, I kind of know the process you were going through.
You bet.
But congratulations on that news.
Thanks.
And now we're in this new location.
Mm-hmm.
You obviously kind of outgrew the old space, actually the last two spaces. You were at Jump Cloud originally, and then you moved over to the Broadway location. Now you're here.
Right.
Beautiful office, plenty of space.
Yeah, thanks. It's just a couple blocks away from where we were before, but kind of light years from having conference rooms that you can have conversations in like this that everyone else can't hear, which is nice. So it's good to both get a little bit of privacy, but also kind of reward the team with the ability to have more space, more time to be creative, and also just some quiet space. It's really remarkable to see how much more you can get done when you get people the space they need to kind of go and do their work.
That's great. So let's talk about the Automox story a little bit. Let's start with the vision, right? Mm-hmm. The original problem statement. Why did you create Automox?
Yeah.
What was the driver behind that? Because it's a fascinating story to me, but I want everybody else to hear.
Sure. We'll try and keep it short and sweet, but at the heart of what we were really trying to solve for, and what we continue to try and solve for, are really the basics in really automating the fundamentals of cyber hygiene. That's really the center point of where we are focused as a company. When we look at kind of investment in the security space over the last 15 or 20 years, the thesis for most folks, I believe, in venture has been around detection. Let's find threats, let's alert people about them. But all of the work really tended to stop there. Instead of just finding the threat and then offering tools and ways for people to solve for them, we really felt that was a gap in the marketplace. So we've really looked at Tenable and CrowdStrike and Carbon Black and many of the other kind of wonderful threat detection tools that are out there, and really noticed that if you really get underneath the covers, the basics and the fundamentals of what it takes to keep a company secure have been largely ignored. And there's four fundamentals really in our mind. One is simply, is your OS patched? Now, God, this is such a basic, almost boring thing, but it is a complex, hard thing to both understand whether or not you are patched and correctly across different OSs and across different geographies. So we think of it in terms of a layer cake, and I'll just kind of lay it out for you here quickly. At the base of that layer cake is OS, Windows, Mac, and Linux. Are they patched, and are they configured and updated correctly? Your audience can ask themselves that question right now. Hey, is that the case in my environment? You layer on top of that then third-party software. Adobe, Java, Firefox, Chrome, Windows. There's a whole host of different softwares that on their own are threat vectors for folks that they too need to be patched. Again, Windows, Mac, Linux, how do you keep up with that? I think for much of your audience, you can kind of kick in the back of your seat and go, whoa, that's a big enough problem as it is. You then go to a third layer on top of that and look at, is the right software deployed on these machines, and is it not only deployed, but is it enforced? Somebody pulled it off, can I make sure it stays on there? Think of that as kind of long-term gold image management, because we all know gold images, once they go out the door, change. The idea here is to allow IT managers a tool to enforce that gold image environment over time. And then the final piece, and one of the, I think, most unique parts about the Automox platform is the ability to manage custom configurations. So maybe you need to deal with password lengths or settings. Maybe you want to lock down USBs. And there's a whole host of different kind of configuration settings that fine-tune Automox to the environment that the customer has, that our ability to do that through native scripting languages is a really unique tool. So you couple those 4 things together. Traditionally, you need 4 or 5 different products and things to actually go and do that work. Those are on-premise tools. The complexity of all of this gets really large. Simply, the thesis for Automox roots down to, can we take all 4 of those fundamentals of cyber hygiene, root them into a cloud-based platform that's lightweight, low cost, and honestly, beautifully designed and easy to manage. It's so interesting to talk to customers whose first reaction to our product is, whoa, this looks and acts in a very modern and contemporary way. And that result alone has been really powerful for us. So it's a long route to simply answer the question why we did and created Automox, had simply to do with the fact that the fundamentals are ignored. They're not dealt with by companies in a consistent and predictable way. And if you actually patched your environment, or as we say, if you just patched your shit, you would reduce the threat surface by upwards of 80%. And to be able to offer that to customers of any size in any industry is, I think, something that's been lacking for a long time. So anyway, that's the long route to, unfortunately, what probably should have been a much shorter answer.
No, but look, we know that vulnerability scanning's been around for a long time. And we know that a lot of those vulnerabilities are a missing patch, whether it's an OS patch or a third-party patch.
Sure.
And the challenge I've seen in the industry, and we had this conversation with you guys when I was at Tenable way back in the day,
right,
was, well, if I know the patch is missing, I know it's driving these critical vulnerabilities, why don't you just apply the patch, right? So I was always a big believer in the concept of automating aspects of the remediation process. Why just detect the vulnerability, stop there, and then hand it to somebody else to remediate? What you've done is kind of flip that just a little bit in knowing that a missing patch has these vulnerabilities. What you're doing is providing companies the ability to just simply patch those missing patched areas, whether it's OS or third party,
right,
and just simplify it, which I think is just a beautiful story. And it's really simple. It's really easy. It's not crazy in the way you think about it and how long it takes to do it.
Yeah.
Right? It's really simple. You deploy the agent and it looks at the latest patches and
right. It's almost, we've taken a different view. Most people approach this problem from the Windows point of view or the Mac point of view or the Linux point of view. Because we work cross-platform, we get the freedom to approach the problem not from a OS standpoint, but we really do it from an agnostic standpoint. So when you look at our interface and you look at your infrastructure and ask the system the question, what is my vulnerability profile? The system tells you in terms of number of machines that are maybe not current with the profiles you've set or are missing certain configurations, but it doesn't care whether it's Windows, Mac, or Linux. And I would argue as an IT systems admin, you don't care either. You may want to dig in later on to say, hey, I have a systemic Windows issue that I need to address. But at the top level, you need a quick answer to what the vulnerability status of your environment is and how to go and fix it in a very quick way. I mean, a lot of people, often we talk to customers and they say, hey, I applied all these patches, but I still had a problem. I still was vulnerable. And you ask them why, and it was, well, their systems weren't rebooted because the patch didn't actually get applied. Yet they didn't want to force a customer or their constituent, meaning the user of the laptop, et cetera, to reboot. Now, that's a fine thing. I wouldn't want my system force rebooted as well. But one of the things we've done in Automox I think has been really neat is allow IT managers a channel of communication between themselves and their constituent by saying, hey, here is, you have systems that need to be patched. Here's what patches have to be deployed. And you have a choice. You can defer, if we give you that choice, obviously, or we can kind of time bomb you and say, hey, you've got a couple days of which you can go ahead and execute this, or we're going to kind of force it on you because it's critical to our company, but giving that kind of kinder modality between the IT sysadmin and their users on the other side of the system, I think is both new in a lot of ways to the space, but also just a nice, softer way to have this engagement. Because at the end of the day, the security folks want everything patched and up to date and ready to go. The IT manager has a lot on his plate and doesn't necessarily have the time and bandwidth to go ahead and execute all of that. So with Automox, we can answer the question that they often have, which is, and how they often find us, can I automate this process? Can I automate taking Severity 1 Windows patches and making sure they're applied, and then making it easy for me to report to someone else about it?
Right.
And the answer is absolutely. But then you have to ask that same question of your Linux and your Mac environments as well. And our ability to really offer the automation capability for folks is, I think, what has been attractive to the venture community, who has kind of gotten behind us, and as well as to customers, right? And I think we've had a lot of great venture folks come around who are not just your classic VCs, but folks like Ron Gula, who we know really well, have thought a lot about Automox and invested not only very early on, but in subsequent rounds with us. Tom Noonan joins our board. We've got a variety of other folks like Tim Belcher, Art Caviello, and a lot of others who have come around the company because they see that this is not only a very important problem to solve, but it has been not solved elegantly in a clean, consistent way.
Yeah, you're bridging a very interesting ITOps, SecOps use case, right? Because if you think about normal patching solutions, you think almost on the IT operational service management side, you've got solutions over there that were really focused on the IT folks. You're crossing that boundary into SecOps because we know that these vulnerabilities exist. We know that if we patch them, those vulnerabilities go away. That improves your security posture. And so you bridge this very interesting gap where no one's really addressed it from the pure security side per se, right? Mm-hmm. Back to your point, a lot of detection, stop at that point. I mean, Symantec kind of did this with Altiris a little bit, but if you look at most of the other solutions, they weren't really driving it from a security operations use case necessarily. It was more from an IT operational use case.
Right.
And I think that's where it's an interesting intersection of those two markets, is that you can improve your security posture, but also address some of the issues and concerns that the IT folks have. And in smaller organizations and mid-sized organizations,
exactly,
it's the same person, right?
Exactly, right. Yeah, they're often the folks that we're talking to, kind of sub-Fortune 2000, which is really kind of our sweet spot today. Those folks have limited budgets. They have limited people. They're sometimes the same person, as you mentioned. And they don't have really the bandwidth to kind of solve for this. So they're looking to put a lot of this into an automated framework that is both easy to understand, that doesn't take you weeks of training, servers to set up, softwares to buy and update on their very own. So the ability to simplify all of that for that market has been, I think, a strong area for us, and we continue to be, I'll say, attractive to that segment of the market. What also, though, has been really surprising to me as we've kind of taken these next steps as a company has been what we're seeing up market. Thermo Fisher Scientific, NASA, Greyhound, a lot of larger companies that when we began this project, we thought, hey, those guys have time, they've got money, they've got people, all just up the wazoo. You think they'd be all set. But when you really dig into it, this is a systemic problem that at scale is more complex. There are more systems. There's just more to deal with. And the tools that those folks have aren't readily available to allow them to automate the outcome. And in this idea of kind of crossing the SecOps and IT manager space, part of this is about giving the IT manager a broader set of modern tools here that has a window into the security side of it.
Right.
The IT, our tribe, should not be sitting on the other side saying, okay, Mr. SecOps, I'm ready for the next thing you're going to give me. That's not how we see the world evolving. I think these two roles are driving towards one another. And if we can give the IT manager view into the things that they are most responsible for, is the thing patched? Is the software patched? Is it configured correctly? can they say hand on heart, yep, I'm all set. Now let's go work on the real hard problem. Because these are the basics that truly machines are better at working at than humans are.
Yeah, so as you think about going up market now a little bit, right? Because I think your sweet spot has been kind of that small, medium enterprise, sub 2,000. Functionality changes probably a little bit, right? In some of the things that you'll have to do. Kind of what's on the horizon for things that you think have to come into the product to continue to move up market a little bit to address some of the bigger enterprise use cases? Because the enterprises struggle with this too, right? You're right. They probably have more budget. They probably have more resources. But look, they still struggle with the basic patching. So what are those additional things that the larger enterprises will want to see out of a solution like Automox to help them solve their use case?
Sure. When we're getting into larger companies, we see a couple things happening. One is the single site instances are simply larger. And there's more people needing to manage the Automox platform. So things like role-based access control and the ability to kind of isolate what administrators can do within the platform is important. So we've added RBAC, SAML, and other tools that allow for both ease of access to the platform and ease of organization within that. Also, we're seeing with some of our larger companies many geographies, so many different locations that have, we're in Boulder, but I've got someone in Singapore. Should their systems be rebooting when it's midnight our time? Well, the answer is no, because it's middle of the day their time. Right. So being able to be more articulate about the timing and deal with this in a multi-tenant fashion. So you can look at different locations in isolation, if you will, and treat them as their own entity, yet roll that all up into a single kind of worldview, if you will. So that's been really helpful for some of the larger companies. The other important thing that gets really interesting for us, and we haven't delivered this in the platform, but this is certainly directionally where we feel we need to be, and we also believe that this is where companies will find additional value in a cloud-based platform, has to do with the surfacing of data intelligence within the platform. It's not in the platform today. These are projects that we're underway with. But if you think of what Automox really has the capability to do is we're a cloud-based agent living on millions of machines around the world. We can start to provide relative intelligence between both companies themselves. Hey, I'm a company of 100 endpoints today. What are other companies of 100 endpoints doing? I might be in the banking space, and I'm a company of 200 people. What are the relevance and how are people patching and managing their systems? We feel there's a lot more information that has yet to be kind of pulled to the surface that competing products that require on-prem servers isolated behind firewalls don't have the opportunity to leverage that data in the same way that something like Automox does. So we're super excited to kind of head down that road. I think that's going to be an interesting part of our platform as we look to surface some of that.
Yeah, we saw a lot of benchmarking tools out there, right? But you got to have the data in a central place to be able to do the benchmarking,
exactly.
Right? And cloud-based platforms provide that opportunity to look at anonymized data across a large set and really drive some interesting benchmarks and even statistics about what patches are working, which patches aren't working, how many machines are rebooting, and right. I mean, there's a lot of other statistics you could pull from that.
I mean, think of something as simple as just patch failure across 10 Windows servers. You can run a patch against those 10 servers and have different outcomes across all of them. Now, you talk to the IT manager and you ask them, well, why is that? And he's scratching or she's scratching their heads and saying, well, they're all the same. But when you really analyze the device, you can really see clearly that things are not the same, and therefore they react differently. So one of the Automox values in the ability to set these policies and configurations and automate them is it actually will snap those 10 servers in alignment in which they are all updated, configured, and treated exactly the same. So now the patch activity or how the patch is going to, or the system is going to react to that patch or update, you can know if it breaks on one, it's going to break on all of them. And you can be much more predictive about that and use data as a tool to answer that question. So we're excited to start delivering some of that to the audience as well.
So if I have to boil this down, value, right? Simplicity of patching is definitely a big value driver
Yes.
for Automox. The cross-platform support, Windows, Mac, Linux, all in a single centralized interface, right? No longer do I need 3 different systems to patch Windows, Mac, and Linux.
Right.
The ability to do configuration enforcement, and then eventually some of this analytics work, right?
Exactly. Yeah, those are the benefits. And I think to add one more piece on that, rooting it all into an easy-to-use modern platform. I think it's easy to kind of gloss over design and ease of use, but we do find that as soon as people, in a free trial, simply pull the agent down, run it on their local machine or run it on a few test machines, within literally minutes can go from an unpatched to a fully patched environment, have clear view of that across whatever infrastructure they choose. And the time frame to value is extremely, extremely short. And I think when people start unpacking that at a larger level, when they look at something like SolarWinds or other tools that are out there, and the time it takes to go from implementation to solved problem, which is a patch secured infrastructure, that can be weeks, if not months. By the time you buy server, set it up, go through your training, configure it, screw it up, call support, etc.
Yeah. Wait for IT to provision the box, this, that, and the other thing.
It is unwieldy. So there is a modern, easy, well-designed answer for this. We think we have built that. We'll see if the market responds to that accordingly, but thus far it's been really good.
So if people want to try Automox, where should they go?
Yeah, so easy to get access to us. So it's just automox.com is our homepage. You'll see some revisions coming out here in the coming months. So you'll go there, you'll pull down a free trial. There's a 15-day free trial. There's no credit cards. There's just your email address to begin. And then obviously it's on us, right? We want to demonstrate value while you're in the platform to go through and patch the system, set up or add your endpoints, configure the policies, and let the policies run. And if you're seeing value, you can convert right within the product itself. There's different levels that you can choose. So there's a basic patching offering, and then something that has a lot more of the kind of enterprise-y features in there as well. So it's real easy, simple to do.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us on Business Security Weekly.
You bet.
If anybody wants more information, go to automox.com, and we'll talk to you next week. Thank you.